Imagine being involved in that area. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine those being your friends? You can't
Your enemies, they are your brothers and sisters under God. We all came from Adam and Eve.
The laughter came first, not the kind born from humor, but the sharp, dismissive kind that carries a message all its own. When Murodjon Akhmadaliev spoke Naoya Inoue's name in interviews, there was always a smirk, always that look that suggested disbelief, even mockery. To him, the so-called monster was a myth that had lived long enough, a champion protected by circumstance and timing, a fighter who could be forced into the open if pushed hard enough. For 2 years, Akhmadaliev pushed. He talked, he called, he demanded, he made himself impossible to ignore. And in doing so, he turned a mandatory challenge into one of the most emotionally charged matchups boxing had seen in years. Naoya Inoue never laughed back. He rarely even responded. That silence, as it often does in boxing, was interpreted as something else. To Akhmadaliev and his team, it looked like hesitation. Two parts of the boxing world, it looked like avoidance. The narrative grew louder with every month that passed.
Did he hit his head? Did he hit his neck? Like, what is he okay? Like, is he 100%? Or is he always going to be a little...
Just makes you realize how valuable life is and how things can change in a heartbeat. So when we talk about...
Without a signed contract. Inoue was ducking, they said. Inoue didn't want the smoke. They insisted. Akhmadaliev was too big, too strong, too relentless. He hit harder. He carried himself like a destroyer, a man built to end reigns and erase legends. If anyone was going to stop Naoya Inoue's run through the lower weight classes, surely it would be this man. When the deal was finally signed, when September 14, 2025 was locked in at the IG Arena in Japan, the tension snapped tight like a drawn wire. The monster had agreed. There was no more talking left to do. What came next would be settled, the only way boxing ever truly settles anything, under bright lights, between the ropes. With fists and willpower as the only currency that mattered. Fight week felt less like a celebration and more like an approaching storm. Akhmadaliev carried himself with the same bravado he had shown for years, flexing at face-offs, staring through Inoue as if the Japanese champion were already a solved problem. He spoke about power as destiny, about his body as a weapon forged for moments like this. He reminded anyone who would listen that he was an Olympic medalist, a reigning champion, a man who had flattened opponents with frightening efficiency. 3 straight knockouts stood behind him, each one reinforcing the belief that this was the fight where the monster would finally be exposed. Inoue, as always, said little. Those who had followed his career closely understood that this was not indifference or arrogance. It was focus. Beneath the calm exterior was a fighter who remembered everything. He remembered being dropped by Luis Neri. He remembered the doubts that followed. He remembered the whispers that said he was vulnerable, that his chin could be cracked if the right man landed clean. He also remembered how he had responded, how he had adjusted, how he had risen and ended those fights on his own terms. The monster was not unaware of danger. He simply did not fear it. On the night itself, the IG Arena pulsed with anticipation. This was not just another title defense. This was pride, legacy, and validation all wrapped into 12 rounds. As Inoue made his walk, the familiar roar followed him, a sound born of years of dominance and national pride. Akhmadaliev followed with his own intensity, eyes locked forward, shoulders tight, carrying the belief that this was his moment to shock the world. From the opening bell, it was clear that neither man intended to give an inch easily. The early rounds unfolded with a cautious rhythm, a feeling-out process that spoke to mutual respect and high stakes. Akhmadaliev tried to establish his presence with a heavy jab and probing shots to the body, looking to test whether the monster would flinch. Inoue answered not with recklessness, but with precision, snapping quick jabs, stepping just out of range, letting his speed speak before his power ever needed to. There were moments early when Akhmadaliev found flashes of success, short sequences where his confidence seemed justified. A hook here, a body shot there, enough to make the crowd lean forward and wonder. This was, after all, the hardest puncher Inoue had faced at super bantamweight, and every landed blow carried a question with it. Could this be the shot that changed everything? Inoue's answers came quickly and quietly. When Akhmadaliev stepped in, he was met with sharp counters. When he squared his stance to load up, Inoue punished the opening with straight rights and sudden hooks that snapped the challenger's head back. The monster's defense was just as important as his offense. Subtle head movement and footwork blunting Akhmadaliev's power before it could fully bloom. This was not a man afraid of exchanges. This was a man choosing when and how those exchanges would happen. That as the rounds passed, the story of the fight began to take shape. Akhmadaliev continued to press, driven by belief and necessity, while Inoue steadily dismantled him piece by piece. The body shots that Akhmadaliev had promised to build his offense around became a liability, as Inoue began targeting that same midsection with ruthless consistency. Right hands dug into the ribs, hooks thudded into the body. Each one was placed with intention, draining energy, slowing reactions, and eroding confidence. By the middle rounds, the crowd could feel the shift. What had started as a competitive, tense chess match was becoming something else entirely. Inoue stood his ground more often now, daring Akhmadaliev to trade, knowing that his speed and timing gave him the edge. When Akhmadaliev tried to rally, waving Inoue forward and inviting a firefight, the monster obliged just enough to remind him who controlled the rhythm. Every time Akhmadaliev landed something meaningful, Inoue answered back, often with more volume and cleaner technique. There was a cruelty to the way Inoue fought that night. Not born of malice, but of mastery. He seemed to relish the challenge, smiling at moments, enjoying the puzzle that Akhmadaliev presented. This was not the reckless destroyer some expected. This was a complete fighter, one who understood distance, angles, and the psychological toll of sustained pressure. Akhmadaliev's face began to show the cost. Swelling, forming, blood appearing. The visible marks of a man being broken down over time. Entering the later rounds, the reality became unavoidable. Akhmadaliev needed something dramatic. The knockout he had promised, the moment he had envisioned for years, was slipping further away with each passing second. Still, to his credit, he never stopped trying. He threw with intent, searching for that one opening, that one clean shot that could validate everything he had said. In the final moments of the 12th round, he even found a brief flicker of success. A right hook that caught Inoue and momentarily wobbled him, drawing a gasp from the arena, but even then, the monster was ready. He steadied himself instantly, eyes clear, guard tight, denying Akhmadaliev the follow-up he desperately needed. When the final bell rang, there was no confusion in the building. This was not a robbery, not a controversy, not a debate. It was a lesson. The judges' scorecards confirmed what everyone had seen. A wide unanimous decision in favor of Naoya Inoue, who retained his undisputed super bantamweight titles and reaffirmed his place among boxing's elite. Akhmadaliev had done what many could not, surviving 12 rounds with the monster and ending his knockout streak. But survival was the only consolation. The laughter, the taunts, the claims of fear had all dissolved under the weight of reality. In the aftermath, even critics found themselves offering respect. Inoue had not just won, he had evolved in front of the world. He had shown patience, intelligence, and adaptability, proving that his greatness was not defined solely by explosive knockouts, but by a deep understanding of the craft. This was a champion who could fight smart, who could absorb pressure, who could go the distance against a dangerous opponent and still dominate every meaningful exchange. For Akhmadaliev, the fight was a harsh reckoning. He had chased this moment for years, convinced that power and belief would be enough. Instead, he met a fighter who was not scared, not careless, and not willing to give him the mistakes he needed. The monster had listened to the laughter, absorbed the insults, and answered in the only language that truly matters in boxing. When the night ended in Nagoya, one truth stood taller than all the rest. Naoya Inoue was still there, still reigning, still evolving. The monster had been tested, doubted, and challenged. And once again, he had walked away stronger. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of boxing's most anticipated showdowns, let us know what you thought of Inoue's performance and where you think he ranks pound for pound today. Do you believe Akhmadaliev will find his way back to the top, or was this his ceiling? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more dramatic, story-driven breakdowns like this, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for the next chapter.